Hey everyone, it's Penny from Silver Sun Astrology here today to talk about Mike Tyson, looking at his astrological chart, the astrology of Mike Tyson. And I'm doing this not because of the fight recently, but actually more so because I heard this podcast on, I believe this is the Sino show. Is that how I say it? So sorry if I said it wrong by any chance. I didn't catch it. But Mike Tyson, Rise, Fall, and Rebirth. It's also available on Spotify. I highly recommend it. It's just really insightful to see, what kind of person Mike Tyson is and what kind of wisdom he has really attained, if you believe that wisdom can be attained in this life, or however that's better worded. But yeah, I really like that. And for anyone who doesn't know, I am recovering from a concussion right now. It wasn't from boxing. I haven't done boxing in many, many years, but this is just kind of my simple, no pressure way to try to dip back into astrology without overexerting my brain. As you can tell, there's really a lot going on in astrological chart, not just Mike Tyson's astrological chart, but really any astrological chart. And it does require a lot of really deep thought. And I think of it kind of like doing math, but in a spiritual way to figure out how things really impact people's personalities on a profound level. And then you have to run the different scenarios in your head. So it does require a lot of deep thinking that's not exactly concussion friendly. It probably depends on the severity of the concussion as well. But I've been working with some doctors, and hopefully things will get back to normal. If not, then I will be making a career change. But we're just going to see how it goes. So you can see he has his moon over here in Sagittarius. I've made a couple different videos about moon in Sagittarius on my channel. He has Mercury at 4 degrees Leo, and that is conjunct Vesta over here. His sun is pretty close to his Jupiter here in Cancer. Now, Cancer, I've said it before, Cancer is a great sign for boxing. And when you start to look at the signs of professional, successful boxers who make money and who do really, really well, a lot of them have Sun in Cancer. Sun in Cancer is a big one. I don't think Mars in Cancer is as big as Sun in Cancer is, but a lot of these people, a lot of these men specifically, have Mars in Cancer. I think I've seen more successful women who box I said Mars, I meant Sun though. I've seen more successful women who box that don't have Sun in Cancer. I'm seeing more other signs there, I believe Aquarius and Pisces and, other things. But for men especially, very frequently, it's Cancer. And I will tell you the secret to that. I will tell you why that is. And it is because anyone who can do sideways moving in boxing is going to be a better boxer. Because when you hit someone from the side and you can step to the side of them the way a crab does, you're going to have an upper hand. If you can see inside someone's ear, you have an advantage in a fight. Oh my gosh. If you're in a fight with someone, you never want that person to be able to see in your ear. But Cancer is the sign of sideways moving. Now, really quick, I'm going to speculate why perhaps this seems to make a bigger difference for men than women. And this is just my hypothesis. I think men tend to be more stubborn. When they're in a fight, they want to be able to go forward with more aggression. Maybe they're more determined to have that forward movement because the forward movement is going directly after something. The sideways movement is not going directly after something, or so it seems at least. And I mean, Cancer is a sign of a feminine maternal energy, that willingness to move to the side rather than go directly after something. And I think that willingness to move to the side is one of the biggest factors in boxing as well as MMA, any kind of striking sport really, or even sword fighting. If you have swinging and stuff, if you have someone who's not willing to step to the side, then they are missing out on a lot of really good opportunities. So in terms of those hooks, those punches that hit on the side of the body or the side of the head, man, Cancer is a good sign for that, and being able to step to the side, after someone throws a punch. I know Mike Tyson has a really good uppercut too, really good uppercut. That's a hard punch to master, but of course, he's one of the biggest names in boxing. Now, over here, this is his Mars sign, perhaps the most important planet for, I wanted to say a competitive fighter, but really an athlete. Mars is the most important planet for an athlete. And I'll try to remember to talk about what I think is, oh, I'm not going to remember it if I don't do it now. I'm just going to do it now. So for a competitive fighter, here's something that's actually really super important. Pluto and Neptune. You wouldn't have thunk it, right? You wouldn't have thunk it, but go look at all of the charts of all of the professional fighters you can think of and that you can find the names online. All of them have Pluto sextile Neptune. And what does that mean? That shows their intuition. That shows that they have quick and alert intuition. And this isn't really a rare aspect to have. I would estimate probably half the population has this. But what I'm saying is that I've never seen a successful professional fighter who doesn't have this. And that is the only common theme that I found in all the charts that I looked at. And I'm someone who's obsessed with astrology, and I used to be really obsessed with martial arts too. But things happen. Physical injuries change our lives. So we'll see where this next chapter actually takes me. But yeah, those are very important planets for a professional fighter, and really anything that creates good intuition. Jupiter can relate to intuition as well. He's got it conjunct his sun here. Okay, so back to Mars. Mars is associated with fighting. It's associated with war. Really, it's athleticism. It's physical energy. It can be sexual energy as well. I have some videos on that too. But we're not talking about that today. We are talking about fighting. So Mars in Gemini is not one of the more common placements for a professional fighter. We don't see it as often. Now, why is that? You might wonder. Well, if you know anything about the sign Gemini, you know it can have a short attention span. It can be kind of stereotyped as being like the ADHD child. So Gemini is a sign of super, super high energy, but also wanting a lot of stimulation, wanting things to be interesting, wanting things to be challenging, and like really wanting to be intellectually stimulated as well. Now, I have noticed Mars in Gemini has a natural talent for using their hands to catch people's faces. Right? Like they're good at landing those punches, especially on the face. Their hands are going to find that face. So when you have someone with the super high energy of Mars and Gemini, who's like actually willing to commit themselves and to train in boxing and to do it consistently, do it every day and work really, really hard in it, Mars and Gemini can be a great Mars sign for a boxer. However, most of them are not going to have the patience and the diligence and the dedication required. So we don't know Mike Tyson's time of birth, but given that he's been willing to work really hard in boxing, I think we have to take that into consideration, you know? If you know anything about astrology, leave in the comments below, what house do you think Mike Tyson's Mars sign would be in? If we actually knew his time of birth, what house would his Mars sign be in? And you go ahead and leave that comment. I'm going to give my opinion here in a minute, my very, very biased opinion as someone who used to box and who is very passionate and opinionated about this. And I think there's other possibilities for sure. But what I think is he had Mars in the 10th house, because the 10th house is associated with Capricorn. It's very ambitious. It's very hardworking. I could definitely also see it being somewhere like the 6th house, which is ruled by Virgo. And the 6th house has to do with consistency and daily effort. But the 10th house has a little bit more to do with dreaming big. Also possible he could have it in the 1st house, which is ruled by Aries, and maybe this was just part of his identity and just something he couldn't help but do. So his Mars sign has 2 squares to it here. Interesting to see, there's not anything trine or sextile. Now, most people who study astrology, we see the trines and we're like, oh, that's really great. You know, everybody likes trines and everything. And the sextiles, everybody likes the easier aspects. People like the things that make our lives easier. But what actually makes us great? Girl, it's the things that make our life hard. It's the things that make our life challenging. And Mike Tyson's chart here is proof of that. Look, he's got his Mars sign square Uranus, Pluto, Anteros. Anteros doesn't really have much to do with what we're doing here, but I was, what do you call it? Autopilot. I was in autopilot just using the asteroids that I normally pull up. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. That might be an inappropriate asteroid to have here. And feel free to look up Anteros and what it actually is, and like some of these other goofy asteroids I had put on here just because I was in autopilot, and this is like what I normally use when I'm getting paid. I mostly do love readings. People pay me for love readings more than anything else, but no one's gonna pay me for anything for a while because I'm recovering from a concussion. I'm like, I can't overexert myself right now. Okay, so he has an interesting stellium here. This one probably doesn't have much to do with boxing, but it might have complicated his life a little bit. He's got Ceres, which is the maternal asteroid associated with a Greek goddess whose name I think starts with a D. Was it Demeter? I'm super concussed, y'all. I don't know. Conjunct Venus, which was associated with Aphrodite, and Juno, Zeus's wife, who was it Hera? I don't know. I also can't remember. Oh gosh, my brain hurts. Okay, I'm gonna stop trying to think so hard. Okay, but they're all opposite. They're all conjunct here, but then they're opposite his moon. His moon. These are his emotions. This is his like deep internal world and how he feels on a deeper level. And again, that's like back over here, square Uranus and whatnot too. So this shows a lot of emotional turbulence, and emotional turbulence for someone who has moon in Sagittarius, that's going to make him want to go run and hide to find some kind of escape, some kind of outlet. But sometimes it's needing the escape, it's needing the outlet that's part of what really motivates us in life, pushes us to go do something else. Well, I'm probably going to wrap this up here because I don't want to overexert myself. I do think it's kind of cool to look at here. He has Saturn conjunct Chiron, showing really, really hard work in healing and self-healing, especially on a spiritual level. This is the sign of Pisces. I don't know what house it's going to be in, but I know the sign is Pisces, and that's the most spiritual sign. So anyway, thank you for listening to me today, guys. I hope you have a beautiful day, and feel free to share any other insights you have on Mike Tyson's chart. I know we just want to appreciate this beautiful person, this imperfect person. We're all imperfect, so we can't just be judging people online, but especially, knowing what he's contributed and listening to his podcast and everything, I really can appreciate this person, and I hope you will too.